You know, the one thing that keeps coming up as I speak to people about their coming out stories, and for the loved ones of those that have come out, is that for many people, especially those who came out years ago, even decades ago, the experience was so very different. There was way more fear, way more chance of attack, way more discrimination, way more uncertainty, and often far, far less understanding. And yet today, we're living in a time where the LGBTQ+ community is even more visible than ever before. There are more voices, more representation, more openness, and that is something truly powerful. But with that visibility also comes new conversations. Some people feel that identity is more accepted now. Others feel that it's sometimes misunderstood or even simplified. There are those that wonder if parts of it are at times seen as a trend rather than a deep personal truth. This show isn't about what's right and what's wrong, it's about perspective. It's about experience. It's about authenticity. It's about understanding the journey from where it was to where it is now, because every generation walks a different path. But every story still deserves to be heard. So, welcome to this episode of Coming Out. Let's open this conversation and hear what it really feels like for those that...
And hello everybody, welcome to episode 4 of Coming Out. I am over to the US of A today to meet the glamorous man that you can also see in this frame. He is Paul David. He is an intuitive psychic. He's an author. He's bloody wonderful. He's a music. I mean, there's nothing this man can't do, quite frankly. So you do need to be following on his social media platforms. And if you go back to a Jaden show, you're even going to get to know all about him. So go and check him out. But however, he is here on a more personal note today to talk about the whole process of coming out. Happy Pride Month, by the way.
Happy Pride Month.
Tell me all about it, sir. Give me the lowdown.
Yeah. So I came out in the late 80s, early 90s. It was a process.
You were 2.
Well, yes. I was very... I wish... No, it was college. So what's really interesting about the whole process for me is while I had connections with a lot of male friends in high school and I sort of knew I was attracted to boys, I wasn't gay. It wasn't an option for me. That didn't fit the paradigm with which I was raised. And so the first time I had a dick in my mouth, I was incredibly surprised. That was something that was new for me. It just was not part of the programming. In fact, many of my friends that were like in band together and theater together came out earlier or in life, and I didn't even know that they were gay. So I was hanging out with these people and never had any experience. In fact, I didn't have any experience till I got to college. Either way, I was a vestal virgin. And the process was just difficult. That the first time I ever had sex was with a girl, and I remember thinking, this is probably years of therapy here needed, but it was, my dad would be so proud of me. And that's just a very odd thing to think at that moment in time. And then 6 months later, I had my first experience with a gentleman. We were in a bar drinking, of course, and I was practicing my French, and I only knew one line.
That's a new way of putting it.
Yeah, well... You know, Lady Marmalade, voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir? Well, this gentleman was from Venezuela, and he spoke French. And the next thing I knew, I had a foot in my crotch, and I was like, I am not hating this. That was a really interesting experience. And then we left the bar together, and this was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So in the middle of the heartland, found a haunted house, or at least they said it was haunted. And underneath the back porch, we continued our little tete-a-tete.
Exploration.
Correct. And unfortunately, we were both drunk, and he got sick and threw up, and I was like freaked out. So we made it back to the dorm, and then I spent the next 4 hours telling him why we were going to burn in hell.
I guess you weren't thinking, my dad's going to be so proud of this.
Correct. That was not the way I was thinking. It was just a really interesting process, and it was conflicting for me because I was raised Presbyterian, but I had an aunt who was a Jehovah's Witness, and I think we may have touched on that in the last the Jaden show episode. But that really scarred me and gave me a lot of baggage that I didn't really have that I brought with to this experience. The gentleman wrote a lovely love note before he passed out and sent it to me anonymously in the mail, and we ended up being very good friends through that. But that first experience was opening, but shocking, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on. Enter my soulmate. So I had met this gentleman the very first day of school, and when he walked into the room in this class that was required, it was almost like a movie. I remember my memory is like this, right? The lights dimmed, the spotlight shone on him, a choir of angels went,
Wind blew the hair back.
Exactly, woo, and a voice went through my head that was, I know you. And it was the strangest experience because it wasn't like a thought that you have normally. It was just this voice going through my head, and I didn't meet him for 3 more months. Turns out these friends of mine had this friend of theirs, David, who was struggling with his roommate, and I wasn't resonating with mine, and so we negotiated, and he moved in. We became friends almost instantly, like really close friends, like a brother. Mm-hmm. And then one drunken night, this alcohol involved a lot in this, I think.
You have to start drinking.
He suddenly was in my bed. And it was, again, more exploration, but I saw fireworks. This was a relationship that I could never have imagined. And we dated on and off for the next 3 months, maybe even 2 years, because neither one of us could be gay. It wasn't how the cards were written.
Right.
And it wasn't until I went to New York City for what we call the J term, January term. I was there for like 6 months studying with arts and things. It was an amazing experience. And I had my first experience with an out gay man, and I saw God. That was the moment that I knew maybe there's more to this gay thing than I expected. And the process of continuing to come out, now this is 3 years after that first experience, was difficult because I had to reconcile with myself all of these beliefs, all of these tapes that someone else had given me, and work through the process. And somewhere along the way, I caught low self-esteem, and so I didn't have much self-worth, which is perfect prey for those back in the day in the community to latch onto you and steal your energy, steal your joy, whatever you want to call it. And so I got into some bad relationships, and then began a roller coaster of bad relationship to bad relationship to bad relationship to bad relationship, until I finally realized what I was worth on the inside. And I connected with a gentleman, and we were together for 15 years, but that also, interestingly enough, turned into be a very bad relationship. But during that breakup, I actually met my husband, and we've been together for 20 years. So the process was rocky. What also was really interesting is when I went back to my parents' house and talked to my mom, and I came out officially to my mom, but not my dad, but I'll unpack that in a second. Mom was like, oh, that's disgusting, was her first reaction. And that's sort of the tapes. But what she said, what I thought was really interesting, there was this TV show on when I first left for college. Now, this is before I had done anything with anyone. And it was a story, like a Hallmark movie of, maybe it was in Marlo Thomas, I don't remember, where this kid came out as gay to his mom. And my mom told me that she watched that movie and thought, oh, I hope that isn't Paul. And I'm like, Mom, I didn't even know. Right? That was fascinating. When I came through the coming out process, I came out kicking the doors open. So I started working for the Metropolitan Community Church in Minneapolis here. And for those of you that don't know what the MCC denomination is about, it was formed by the Reverend Troy Perry as a place for GLBTQ people to come back and reclaim the relationship with Scripture. And so it was the openly gay church. And I was the minister of music, I was the administrator, the secretary, a bunch of jobs to make a salary, and I worked there for 9 years. Back in the 90s, there was a gentleman by the name of Fred Phelps who protested funerals, and he was not a nice guy. Okay. And his famous signs was God hates fags. And so he actually protested our church. And that Sunday, my dad took my mom to the church, and I'd never come out to my dad, and brought her there for support. And that was the only conversation that we really sort of had. And even though it wasn't really a conversation, it was just he showed up as a supporter, and that was the most important thing. My parents have accepted my husband, they've accepted all my boyfriends and the family like there was no tomorrow. We didn't actually have official conversations. It just became part of the status quo, and that I'm very, very thankful for.
It was almost like the elephant in the room that was just accepted as the elephant and never talked about, kind of thing. That's amazing.
Until the wedding, right? And then they came to the wedding, and then I had to kiss my husband in front of my parents, which we're not very demonstrative, and I'm a Cancer, so I'm pretty shelled up. And so I'm not super demonstrative. Public displays of affection never were my thing.
Same for me.
So it was never an issue. And then suddenly to have that, and then to have them there and support it and show love and kindness was just an amazing experience.
Wow, amazing. Did anyone react worse than you thought they would react?
So worse is the wrong word. So my aunt, who was a Jehovah's Witness, definitely reacted. Definitely had a feeling about it. Was it worse than I expected? No. And I don't know that there's anyone in my life that ever didn't accept it, or if I gave two shits if they did or didn't. So
right, okay.
Part of how I live my life is just boldly who I am to the best of my ability. And I've not always been that way. So I don't know that if anyone reacted to it, or I just didn't really give a shit and they just stopped being part of my life. So I can't really answer.
So the people that you cared about cared enough to hang around and to accept everything, and those that were just kind of on the peripheral were just like, oh well, if they didn't like it, they can go, and if they do like it, they can stay. Welcome to the journey. Exactly.
And just I never thought more about that. And to be fair, my entire family has been incredibly supportive of my relationship. So I've been very blessed that way. Now I know I'm very clear there are families out there that kick kids out, that shut people off, and that often has more to do with the person who's shutting them off, their baggage and their tapes that they're playing in their head versus the person that's actually getting shut out, which is still unfortunate because going through that experience has to be horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think it is easier to come out now than it was back in the day? Or
that's a great question, Jaden. Easier in the standpoint of it's more. I mean, I came out in a day when there wasn't Will and Grace, right? There wasn't RuPaul's Drag Race. So it's more visible now, but the coming out process more than anything else is admitting to yourself that you're not like everyone else. Mm-hmm. And that, no matter what time you're coming out in, is still a challenge because you still have to admit to yourself that you are worthy. And society, I mean, there's so much going on, even now with repealing, at least in America, LGBTQ rights and trans rights and all that. So it's still a dangerous time. Is it easier? There's more public acceptance or more places to take who you are? Because back in the day, in the middle of Iowa, I thought I was the only one.
Right.
And then I thought I was one of like 3, and then maybe 4. And then my circle expanded, but it was still not something that I knew a lot about, especially in the middle of Iowa and the Corn Belt. But so I think now there's more visibility. Doesn't make it easier, just makes it more resources for you to go to. Is that fair?
Yeah. Do you think it makes it more dangerous? Do you think people are like, because obviously, I mean, people that hate part of the community, they're going to hate it whether it's visible or not visible. I mean, like if they are really anti
absolutely.
Anti-gays, it doesn't matter whether it's more visible on TikTok or less. In fact, I'm going through a lot of questions now with the visibility of our community and thinking, are we on some level leading lambs to slaughter?
Interesting question. And it would be a yes and no answer. I mean, it's easier now to find targets because of TikTok, because people are out. So that part of the equation isn't changed, but I'm going to again go back and talk about how we show up. If you show up boldly, if you show up in your power and you surround yourself with people that are in your power, you're probably not going to encounter those energies.
Right.
But, it is easier for those that hate to find those targets. So more dangerous, though, was the word, because, I mean, this is pre-Matthew Shepard, beaten to death. There was still the violence going on in the day, but it was maybe harder to target because the gay bars didn't have windows. They were like actually the bar in Iowa that we went to was called the Warehouse. It was literally a warehouse,
Right.
and you had to know where to go. Whereas now the saloon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, when I first went there, it was, again, no windows, all boarded up, a solid door. Now it has windows and awnings and posters,
Right.
so it's easier to find, and it's more open. And especially the Twin Cities has been a pretty open community. Of course, there's haters. Of course there is. But it's a pretty open and affirming community. So I don't know if it's more dangerous or just easier to find the targets. And I don't know if that we're leading people to slaughter, because I think we have to be who we are boldly. And slaughter is happening not just based on LGBTQ status.
Oh, no, completely.
Yeah, there's so many other things that that's
I'm just thinking, like, because it is everywhere, that part of me is thinking no one's actually talking about, and that's why a reason why I wanted to do this show. No one's talking about the realness, the authenticity of what it is to be gay, what it is to come to terms with it yourself, and what it is to come out. And so it's almost really cool and really trendy. And I would think, someone that was a little bit, I use the word simple, but I don't mean it derogatorily, because I was a little bit lost in anything that I saw that I thought was cool, right? And without thinking things through. So if I had been a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid now, I'll be like, oh my God, everyone is gay on TikTok, so I'm going to tell the world, and my dad just punched me in the face. Right, maybe I should have thought about that before I came. Like, are we making it seem so trendy and so cool that we're not actually, that we still need to take caution in who we tell and who we approach? Or
So I'm always going to go, that's a great point, Jaden. And from one perspective, sure. I mean, there are even, to your point, people who are going to try being gay because it is trendy. And they're actually not.
Or to get girls.
Yeah.
It's happened to me. It happened to me in a club. Someone fancied my sister, and they went, "Oh, can we dance with? Don't worry, it's okay. We're gay." And she went, "Great. So is my brother. Let me introduce you." Oh no, we've got to go now. It's time to leave.
Yeah. So, I mean, it can go either way. In fact, I knew a young man who I think would probably identify as bi now. But back in when he was younger, I was in a relationship and he looked up to me. And so I think he experimented. He experimented with a lot of stuff. So there was other substances involved. So it wasn't just that he looked up to me, but I think that may have influenced it. But now he's heterosexual, or at least living that life. And I mean, more power to you.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's, again, more trendy, so people want to be. They may try it on for a hot minute. I mean, look at the whole metrosexual movement where people just dress better. I don't think that's a bad thing. So queer culture has really influenced a lot of mainstream culture, and I just don't think that's bad. If you live in a spirit of fear, though, if you are worried about it, I know for a fact that energy will come to you. So I'm always going to err on the side of be who you are boldly, but then find your resources, find your support.
Yeah, absolutely. Because unfortunately, people are still, hence why there are so many charitable organizations in your country, more than I think in England. Although there are.
That's why we still need pride. I mean, it's no different. There's still so much going on that people are afraid of that which is different than themselves.
Yeah.
And being gay is, unless you are in my bed with me, it is none of your damn business.
Absolutely.
Right? What I do, as long as no one is getting hurt.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't know if we talked about it on the Jaden show, but I remember going out to work for 2 charities in the States and to do fundraising and singing and I was really petrified of going to Atlanta, going to, oh my God, Augusta in Georgia, right? Because, oh my God, I'm working with the YMCA. It's the middle of the bloody Bible Belt. And I was being picked up by 2 people from the church, and I was like, oh my God, don't say anything. Hide your pagan tattoos, Jaden. And the 45-minute from Atlanta to Augusta, they were like, oh my God, you're so cute. The girls at church are going to love you. I'm like, no, I'm all right. I'm just here to sing. Oh my God, there's this one girl, and I'm like, no, I'm really cool. I'm just singing. After 45 minutes, I went, look, I'm gay. And I know it's not something that you're going to be excited about, but I'm here to raise money, and that is it. And at the end of it, they were the most beautiful people I've ever met. They went, oh my God, you're like an angel sent by God. Oh my God, God is really working through you, and we celebrate everything that you are. They were beautiful. I went to Atlanta, Georgia, to a gay charity thing. I was raising money for pretty much a gay-based charity because it was supporting people with degenerative diseases, but HIV, blah, 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 finding healthcare, finding resources for them. And they were really horrible to me. They were just like, they were like, I went on this radio show and they were like, okay, so Jaden, you're like a queer artist from the UK. I went, well, I'm an artist from the UK, but in my personal life, I would only fall in love with a man. Okay, so you're like a gay artist. I'm like, no, I'm an artist, but I'm gay. Okay, well, you obviously support your local gay community. I went, well, I support my local community irrespective of anyone's differences. So whether they're old, young, employed, unemployed, disabled, non-disabled, gay, straight, whatever. I said, so I kind of do that. Right. Well, you obviously go to gay pride. I said, I'm a little bit like, I don't go to concerts either because I don't like being around many people. They went,
100%.
Yeah. So like, I've been to gay prides when I've sung at gay pride because I've sung on main stage in London a few times. I said, but I probably wouldn't go there on my day off if it was a choice, and I wouldn't go to a football match either because I don't like the intensity of millions and millions of people. And I guess, the sparkles also make it a little bit more intense for me. And they went, oh my God, you're like a really bad gay. And I went, well, I can take that. I said, but while you're going home at 1 a.m. with your new piece of cock, I'm still singing until 3, raising money for someone who can't afford HIV and cancer treatment. So I'm raising money for a second bout of chemo. So I might be a bad gay, but I think as a human, I'm all right. And they went, that was Jaden Cornelious, the gay artist from the UK, and stopped the interview.
I was like, up a really interesting point, though, too. It is something we need to balance because that is almost militant gay, right? Where they're forcing someone into a box. And the whole point of the Pride movement was to take away the boxes, to take away the closet.
Absolutely.
And so I think we need to be cognitive of that.
Because we're creating them.
Yeah. You can take it to the extreme. Being gay is not, it's a piece of who I am. And I want to be fair, when I first came out, I was waving that frickin' flag like a mother. But as I've gotten older, it's just a piece of who I am, and it's none of your damn business.
Really? Yeah, I kind of don't feel, I put this thing on TikTok the other day, and I was just kind of saying that I love the celebration of individuality, uniqueness, of spirit, of creativity, of life, and of everything. I don't like labels and boxes. I'm very anti-labels and boxes. However, we do have them, unfortunately, because we are parts of different communities. However, so I was kind of thinking, I don't feel personally that there is much, I'm not into the sexualized thing. Don't get me wrong, I love sex, and and I can recognise that a stripper and a go-go boy is probably stunning, but I don't need that to represent who I am as a gay man.
Fair.
It doesn't represent me because you're not going to see me naked until I work this body out. You understand? Then you might see a little bit of flesh, but until then, no one's seeing anything, even myself. So for me, I don't feel that there is much within Pride now, apart from the fact that I'm gay, that actually represents who I am as a gay man. And I remember, and I said this as well, that I was very excited. I'm back in the 80s as well when I came out. So, when gay pride was 15 people walking down one road and having a sandwich in the park afterwards. That was gay pride back in the day,
Yep.
And then it got bigger and bigger. And I remember one year I was kind of getting famous at the time and was going to go and sing. And it was the biggest one. They changed the park. It was all over like the London radio stations. And it was like, come. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. And I remember walking to the main stage. And there was this mum and dad, and dad was holding a little boy's hand. And there was a younger kid in a pushchair. And I was like, this is what it's about. It's just a celebration of our colours and our uniqueness. And this is wonderful. And then out of the bushes in front of this family came 7 men with their dicks out, wiping cum off their face and putting their dicks away. And I was like, and this is why we will never be fucking accepted.
Right. And the Twin Cities is a very accepting place. And so our Pride is one of the largest in the United States. And it's very much this day and age, and I want to be clear, I don't go every year either unless I'm performing. We may go and just walk around once and out because people. No, thank you.
And great stalls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's churches next to support groups, next to musical groups, next to corporations. So at least here it feels more family, and there are people that will bring their family out. And I think we still have that sexualized element of it. That's mostly the parade and a few things at the park, but it sort of is more homogenized here, at least here in the Twin Cities.
Right. What are your hopes for the future generations of the community?
I hope that everyone just learns to accept themselves, whatever that may be. That we take away the label of the spectrum that it has to be one thing or another thing, and just be who we are, love who we want to love. As again, the key phrase being, as long as no one is getting hurt, it shouldn't freaking matter.
Absolutely.
And I hope that the seeds that were planted in the 70s and 80s with Stonewall and all of the gay pride events, they were important. The Will and Graces were super important to normalizing the fact that people love who they love. Love is love was the phrase that Minnesota used a lot when they were promoting or allowing gay marriage, the votes on gay marriage. Minnesota was one of the first states to allow it before it became a national thing. But realizing that all this groundwork frees people up to be and love who they are without the need to label it. And celebrate life. Everything you're talking about, celebrate life, celebrate love, celebrate being on this freaking marble shooting through the universe, right? And just create, explore, experience, celebrate. That's my hope as we get better, that we don't need these labels, because even that super sexualized, there's trauma in there, right? Yeah. There's stuff, not to yuck anyone's yum, but look at why you're doing it. Look at why you feel the need to proclaim some things which are maybe not appropriate. For everyone, and just allow yourself to be. And again, no one's getting hurt. Do it in the privacy of your home. Amazing, but just celebrate each other. I'm hoping that is the legacy that us pioneers that went before, right? Can leave for the next generation.
Yeah, no, I think you should be president. And and you brought a little bit of it up, so I'm going to ask another question. Do you think it's important that the young people, rather than seeing it as either a great music festival, B, a chance to wear, whatever they want, C, a fuck fest, do you think it's important for people to understand the history?
I think for everything, it's important to understand where we came from, or history is doomed to repeat itself. I mean, even like Memorial Day isn't a chance just to have a hot dog. Right, it at least in the United States, it symbolizes those that have served and passed away, giving their life for the country. It's become so homogenized that it just is the kickoff of summer. And the same thing with Pride. It's just a chance to go out and be flamboyant, which is nothing wrong with being flamboyant, nothing wrong with celebrating. But I think that we need to always keep in mind where we came from, or we forget.
And the people
forgetting gets us right back there.
Yeah, the people that not only fought for us to be accepted, but also died for us to be accepted.
Absolutely.
And I remember, and it was only, I'm 53, and I came out when I was kind of, I think like 19, 20, I think. And even then, like, people were being beaten to shit. I was being stoned at a bus stop before I knew I was gay, because I was a little bit different. I looked like Harry Potter. I wonder if he would have been stoned if he'd come out a few years earlier. And I didn't even know I was gay. So, it was, there was no one on, regular television that were, playing a role that we could identify with.
Not that wasn't a caricature, or that was evil.
Or was a comedian and was camp as anything, but was still not coming out, but was like, oh, no, oh, stop it, oh, give over. But was, that kind of, we had a lot in the Carry On films in England and stuff, but none of them came out as being gay. In fact, if you look at, if you read some of their biographies and look at some of their lives were desperately dark and tortured because they could not come out as themselves.
Exactly.
So the work that has been done is not just someone on TikTok saying, oh my God, I'm gay and I'm going to tell the world and this is how everyone accepts it. And, it's actually, there was a huge process in us having the freedom that we have now, the blessed freedom that we have.
Absolutely. Prisons. Oscar Wilde had to do hard labor because he was so out there. There are those pioneers that we need to honor and remember, only from the standpoint of understanding where we started from. And so when you do go celebrate, there's more weight to it. Yeah. It doesn't become just this frivolous thing, fuckfest But there's a reason that we get to have that frivolous fuckfest. Yeah, there's pathway to it.
Absolutely, sure. It's quite interesting. There's this guy on TikTok, and I can't remember his name, but I will send you a link. And he's talking about he's done his work, his study. He's a very intellectual man, and he's talking about like queer history. I don't really like the word queer, and I think it's an English thing because queer always meant unwell. So the gay history and how there were so many characters, like royalty and emperors that basically had male lovers. The Sultan of the Ottoman Empire had a room for his concubines and a room for his boys. And obviously we all know about Alexander the Great because, thank God Colin Farrell was beautiful in that and, was having an affair with Jared Leto. But, there are so many, that actually before kind of, and I don't know when it changed and became completely illegal and abnormal. I don't know if it was the 1900s or the 1800s or I think 1800s, I think the Victorian era, I think gays were basically was punishable by the law. But because Queen Victoria couldn't believe that another woman could have sex with another woman, it never mentioned lesbians, only gay men. So I don't know when it all changed, but we were the revered of Egypt and Babylon because we were the embodiment of the god and masculine and feminine divine because we were in touch with that. Even here in Mexico, the Mushas, which hundreds have been killed over the years, again were I don't know if they are now. I don't know much about the situation, but it was a spiritual movement. They were out of gender. They were neither masculine nor feminine. So they were divine and. All of a sudden, we just became deprived, kind of like despicable and Sodom and Gomorrah. I don't know when all this thing kind of came in, but
yeah, it was definitely at least specifically with the Christian texts. I know a lot of that happened around the 1900s, where they changed some of the meanings by putting the word homosexual in the Bible, and that just spurred a whole bunch of people onto a whole bunch of bad theology, and that's a different story today, but. Yeah, in America, of course, the United States, the two spirits and many of the tribes has always been something that's been celebrated. But my guess is someone wasn't accepted and got afraid and they were insecure. And so it became it's always easier to be in power when you have people hating on something and it was an easy target.
Yeah. And the most homophobic people are normally ones that want to have a bit.
Absolutely. They're the ones who are the farthest in the closet. Every single time. It's that line from Shakespeare, the lady doth protest too much.
Yeah.
100% of the time.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to get you whoever you are, and if you're still because, Okay, Paul, thank you so much for being part of my show. I think you're just an amazing human, and I love everything that you do. And I'm looking forward to you coming back onto one of my other shows, Book Read, because I just want to say congratulations on the release of your new book.
Thank you. Yeah, 42 Stories, Life, Universe, Everything, available at your favorite bookseller. So excited to come back and talk.
Well, we're going to get back and because I want you to read some of it. I want you to explain about it and how it came about. And
for sure.
So we'll get you on a book read ASAP. And people at home, obviously, you love him and you love his authenticity. So go and check him out on the Jaden Show as well. You'll find that in the playlist of the Jaden Show on JCTV as well. Paul David, thank you. I send you the biggest and the most pinkest hug here from the mountains of Mexico. We are in touch, young man. Bless you, mate. We'll catch up soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
See you later, hon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on episode 4 of Coming Out. Well, David, thank you so much for your story and for spending time with me. It's been really lovely to catch up with you. People at home, don't forget to like, to comment, and to subscribe. No hateful comments. They will not be accepted. But if you have a question for Paul David, please put it in the comment section of this episode, and I'm sure Paul will get around to answering you. Also, if you have a story or you know someone who has a story about coming out, what it was like for them, then please get them in touch with me. I am everywhere on social media. Please get them in touch with me, and they are welcome on this show as well. Don't forget, I've got other shows. So if you feel that any of the shows connect with you and you have a story, please get in touch. I wish you all the love and luck in the world, and I will see you again on the next episode of whatever turns up on JCTV. See you later. Bye-bye.